Welcome to Boxcars, War Machine and Horde's supplementary podcast for War Room PL YouTube channel.
You can find us online at www.warroom.pl. You will also find our blog there. Visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/warroompl for great video battle reports. You can also like our Facebook page for latest War Machine news under facebook.com/warroompl. If you have a small meta and want to develop as a player or just try out different lists in international environment, you can play online on Vassal. It's free, but you can support developers by donating. Welcome to episode 37 of Boxcars. I'm Marcin and I'm playing minions.
And I'm Rafal and I'm not playing Cricks anymore, thank you.
we have a special guest today, and we have pleasure to welcome Team Banky. Hello.
Hey guys, happy to be here.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
It's post WTC. We've got a beer and we're chatting in Poland. It's very exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got the unfinished game of Kill Team before us.
Oh, come on, stop me. You know, they are not paying you for this, okay?
We're just gonna push some Ecclesian.
Yeah, we just move them around.
Euclidean traders, whatever they are, over so we can fit the podcasting equipment in the space.
Yeah.
I'm sure we were doing this wrong, but who cares? Anyway, we are here to talk about WTC, about the event, about maybe games, about a bit of statistics that we saw from the internet, and maybe strike some interesting conversation on what happened there.
Yeah, it was a pretty fun weekend. I'm a fan of the event.
Yeah, I think we mainly fans are coming there.
Yeah, I think this is a event of a year for a lot of these people, right?
Yeah,
it's
for
like
sure.
Everybody, when you maybe not right after the event, but like probably at beginning of the year somewhere, you will start thinking, okay, now it's time to probably think at least faction and then probably direction where my WTC list will start going, and then start preparing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak certainly to the North American experience, but for us and Canadians, our team selection usually happens at some point in January, and we select our teams, and then we spend the entire spring and summer convention season practicing lists and prepping things and planning for the WTC. So it's fair to say this event was a big deal to all of us.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe we weren't aiming for top 10 our team. I mean, but it was also important event for us.
Yes, of course.
So
this is something that you prepare, like a half a year at least.
Yeah.
If not more.
And the thing is, it's different from a regular convention because I'll spend like 3 months preparing a list for a convention that I'm really excited to test it out at. But here, you're not only having that pressure, but you've got 4 friends who also want you to do well.
Yeah.
You've got all their pressure and all the team chats and the conversations.
And even if people are, not, let's say, I don't think that most of the people from our community is not very nationalistic, flying in color. It feels a little bit different,
Yeah, it does. Yeah, nationalism can be a little unhealthy, but I think the spirit of the WTC is there's a little friendly camaraderie about that, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was in Poland, which is, I guess, the home team advantage for you guys.
Yeah.
It was
not enough.
It was a big deal for us, I would say, that we could do stream. It was much easier for me to travel from Szczecin to Warsaw with all the equipment in the car. If the Muse guys that were doing this all the years coming here to States with that much equipment, that's a lot of work, right? Just bringing the equipment itself and setting it up, it's a huge ton of work. So.
And I will say, from all reports I've gotten at home, you guys did a great job of the stream. So
yeah, it's all thanks to the commentators. I think it's George Busha and our friend Kamil Utes and Petero. They have done, and all the guests they had out there, they've done a great job.
Yeah.
And shout out, of course, to Simon, who really handled all the
we have to
logistics
thank
stuff.
him. Yeah,
he did a really amazing job.
Yeah, from the technical, let's say, accommodation point of view, I think it was really okay. And did we have any issues?
I didn't. I mean, there was one slim issue. Although, if I think about it afterwards, it wasn't a big deal. The breakfast the first day, we went there and there was like queue pretty long. But then
30 minutes.
But then.
Well, maybe 5 minutes. Okay.
No, yeah. Then we waited. It went pretty smoothly in the end. So. But Simon was pretty unhappy that there was a queue at all, and the next day they repaired it, and then
and then it was back down to the bottom level, and it was all sorted out really quickly. Yeah, and the thing is, like we got our food fairly quickly, and we were like, oh, there's no tables, we'll have to wait to sit, and then we were like, no, we'll just go in the lobby and eat in the lobby.
Yeah, exactly. And nobody was asking you to please go to the restaurant or something. So the stuff was okay.
No one told us what to do at all, which was really maybe they're bad.
So probably we should congratulate also Australia for winning the event for the second time.
Yeah, it was the first time somebody gets the second time.
Broke the curse.
And actually the finals was between Poland and Australia. So also the finals were both teams were already having the first spot. So somebody would take that historical event to the next level. Step it up a bit. Now Australia can say we won it twice. Can you do it?
The semifinals were the Czech Republic, which was really impressive.
The Black Horse.
They were certainly the story of the scene, playing against Poland South, who were certainly, I think, a favorite team from early on. And then my team, Beaver, got to play in Canada. Beaver, sorry for folks not familiar. I'm from Canada. And we got to play against Australia, so it was our responsibility to prevent someone from winning twice, and we failed, I'm afraid. Great show though, unambiguously.
Yeah, and we should congratulate also to the English guys.
Yeah, two
highest finish for England ever.
3 and 4. That's incredible.
First podium.
Yeah, that means that Meta is very strong, but they have also a lot of players, right?
Yes.
In the UK.
The coveted Thirth trophy.
Yeah.
That's the real prize at this point.
Yeah, and the good thing is that even if I like it that it happens so in such a way that Poland, even if it lost the final, it still retained the second place.
Yep.
Yeah. Because it was like 3 years ago that they lost the final and they were dropped to the fourth place, and it's never never nice.
I'm really not a fan of that. If you are in the finals, you should be first and second.
See, I don't like final table variant because it unnecessarily incentivizes the random order in which you receive your opponents.
Okay.
If you play against one of the best teams in the first round, shouldn't that count similarly? But I do know that the experience of falling from final table to fourth place is pretty heartbreaking. Strength of schedule wise, I think we had one of the higher. My team had one of the higher strength of schedules of the event.
Exactly.
So did the U.S. actually. A lot of people might be critical of the finish of the U.S. Rockefeller team, but they have a strength of schedule of 25.
Yeah, they faced some very hard teams on the way.
Yeah, they had the highest strength of schedule of all teams, I think.
Yeah,
when I look at them.
I think we were second highest, or at least tied for second highest.
Yes, you were.
With Poland.
Yeah.
And it really, it was we were talking earlier today about how there really aren't any kind of cupcake teams left at the WTC. Like, there's no country here where we're like, oh, good, we got to play against, like, we played against the Belgium one in the first round, and that was not an easy match at all.
Yes, exactly.
Our players are incredibly skilled, and we proceeded to play against more and more players from teams who were excellent. Yeah. We played against 2 of the German teams, and unsurprisingly, Germany's pretty good at this game, having won last year.
Yeah, they are. So generally, if you are in the top 10 or close to the top 10 of WTC, that means you've done your homework, you've done well, and you've got good players, right?
And
so
Austria getting 5th, I think
that is a big deal.
Yeah, this is also a big deal because France is really good, so getting 6th by the real difficult name France, but we suppose it's France 1.
It's the. Did you ever read the Asterix and Obelix comics?
Yeah, of course.
Who
is this guy?
The chief of the village.
Yeah, okay.
But in English, translated to Vital Statistics, which is all the names in Asterix are clever little puns, and this is also a French pun. But
okay, yes, I suppose so. Yeah. So, and we have to say about Czech Republic because we're quarterfinals.
Yeah.
And semifinals even.
Yes.
Semifinals. So special shout out to them because at the end they were one of they ended at the 10th place, but still getting to the semifinals, it's really a big achievement.
Again, it shows they did their homework. It shows they knew what they were doing. And we watched them play against Poland South, and everyone on the.
It was not like.
No, it was a very, very tight game, and it was ambiguous for a little bit there. Actually, the result of that game.
There was one like an issue or things like that. Yeah. So it will happen always in the competitive things.
The thing is, the level of investment at this event is incredibly high. I certainly wouldn't fault anybody for second guessing a judge calling, appealing it to the head judge. I mean, once the processes have been resolved, you have to accept the result.
Of course.
But there's a good reason to be very invested in it. Did you want to talk about some caster statistics?
You know me.
Everybody at this table likes statistics. Maybe from a different point of view, but everybody.
Time for some hot takes, right?
Hot takes? No, it's cold takes already.
let's think. Is Asphyxious 3 nerf coming or not? It's like
losing the unyielding.
I mean, from the statistical point of view, he is not neither green or red. He had only
57.
Only in question marks 57% win rate.
Is 60 green?
Is 60 because we had somebody made a nice list. It's above 60. It's green.
It's from the Jay. It's from Jay. Or?
Is that what Jay showed on his Facebook?
So 57 is pretty close to green.
But I think that the Asphyxious thing is that many, let's say, not so experienced players still got good results with them. So it's a little bit downgrading. Maybe it's not a proper word. But it shows that the power of this list is so high that even if you, let's say, not played for the Cricks for the last 2 years or a year or something like that, if you switch to Asphyxious 3, let's say 4 months time or 6 months earlier when it was getting popular, you can still in such a short period of time master it enough to get a good results at the WTC. So maybe the power level is a little bit higher than the real indicator in the percentage.
Keith and I had a conversation where he felt a little bit like Asphyxious 3 might be old tech.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful list. It's really strong. It presents really well, but a lot of people at WTC were quite prepared for
that, exactly.
I think Animag is a good response to it
a
lot of the time. She usually brings the armor cracking tools necessary. I think Scar 1 was a really good answer to it.
Yeah.
A lot of players underestimated the ability of Madrak to beat Asphyxious, which certainly happens. The biggest challenge for someone in a tournament environment is that you need a list that's capable of both beating Asphyxious and also beating whatever they're pairing it with.
Yeah, usually Scar 1, Dark Host or something.
Sure.
But don't you think in general right now in War Machine the tech gets old very fast? Meaning somebody creates a list after the CD or whatever thinks up the list, wins few major tournaments, it gets copied, and then everybody needs to solve it just to progress and win against it. So your tech gets old like within 3 months probably.
Depending on the meta.
Depending on the meta and depending on how popular the list is.
You know, you're part of that problem. Being a person with a podcast.
Yes, exactly. Yes, because we are shouting out with Asphyxious 3 is good, but I think that it really depends on the meta, because even if you are podcasting, YouTubing, and doing other social media things, sharing the list, it still does not reach, because in Poland, for example, Asphyxious 3 was never so popular. Never get good results.
Player using Asphyxious 3.
Yeah, so looking at your local meta, the people may not know Asphyxious. He will be out of style before it goes there. For example,
but we are looking from
WTC.
the perspective of WTC, and if we see Asphyxious in like 5 different countries showing in top 3, we know it will be an issue on WTC, and we know we need to have an answer for that. Yeah.
So in the WTC environment, as a North American player, we do a lot of research in advance of it. I mean, I'm the captain of Team Beaver, and we do our homework.
Yeah, of course.
What kind of research did you guys do going into the event? Like, what were your sources for that?
We spread out the work. We had a web page where all the Polish teams were putting the strong, meta representations for each factions, and we chose like 5 to 6 casters that we thought will be strong and what team and
Would
what
be popular,
is usual.
not more less
Popular, yeah. Not
the
strong,
popularity is the
popular.
most.
So there was a list like probably
Up from 4 to 6,
4 to
7.
6 per faction, and each of the players had to work out how is he going to deal with that, and that page was updated regularly every week, every 2 weeks. So that's our idea how it was solved, and
then
the group thinking a bit helped. Like somebody saw something, he posted there.
Because everybody is in the chats, in the Facebook groups, messenger groups, talking about the different factions, and we try to gather it up to get like an NSA of War Machine.
So for example, my tech versus that we worked out, my tech as a minion player with Jaga Jaga is known to be a tech versus Kriegs, or an general answer to a Kriegs. So my tech versus 9 Slayers was light them on fire. So I've got 2 units of Crocs. I don't do damage with them, but
we played many games together again.
I shoot oil to as many
as possible,
and then put them on fire. I do maybe 2 damage to each. Doesn't care, because next round they will get boosted power 12 versus armor 17, and that might cripple a system each.
Absolutely.
Then I fit with Jaga on them, and I cripple another system on each. And by the time I get into close combat with them, probably
they cannot make a combo strike.
And if they cannot make a combo strike versus my battle engine, they are in trouble.
Yes,
right,
I agree.
So it isn't like 100%er, definitely not. It's maybe a 50%er matchup. But that was my idea too. And we played it like 3 times, and it worked out. That specific matchup. I mean, I played versus Kriegs like 12 times probably, or more. Yeah, maybe more. But that was my so the Kriegs, because we knew there would be a lot of Kriegs, so I played a lot of Kriegs with Jaga.
I think she's a really interesting Kriegs answer. Because as we mentioned before, like being able to solve Slayers, it's also important that you solve the tools.
Yeah, she solves a lot because of the eyeless side.
And she's like a baseline good anti-Kriegs caster, and then you bring to your list specific Slayer answers.
Yeah.
I think that's a clever way to handle it.
Yeah, but so we gather up the data, we've got this application. So we've got we have a special, let's say, it's not a computer program because it's a computer. It's an application from iPad or from iPhone, and we just mark. It shows both the lists, and it shows also how we evaluate the matchup. And even if we start with the matchup, then we can see how, for example, if
what's
we take
left?
this. It looks like it looks better for us than if we take that one. So this also helps, and
right, that's clever. I like that a lot. It's a slick program too. I mean, we did a lot of the same kind of assessment, but all by hand with various illustrated.
2 of our guys are programmers, so that's
that probably helps. No, that's super useful.
Yeah, maybe we take a look at the list, and with no special order, we take a look more closely at the outliers.
Yeah.
So let's start with Anamak. She got like 64% win percentage. Is that
again? That's not outrageously higher than the Slayer lists, which we're calling acceptable.
Yeah.
But Animag was a force to be reckoned with. I think we knew going into WTC she was a really strong caster. She was fairly fresh, but not so fresh that people hadn't figured out how to play her yet. Perhaps fresh enough that people hadn't figured out how to play against her.
She was a reason why I removed 1 Warbeast from Rusk, losing 1 free solo, and put Mid Thresher in.
Huh.
I
knock down a bunch of Chosen and kill them with trash attacks? That seems pretty okay.
Yeah, Chosen or the Warmongers, I can take out a unit or push them away, and so...
Can't rise if you're dead.
Yeah.
Exactly. And but with Anamak, 64%, it's quite good. But I think that it shows up that the WTC environment with so much Grimkin and so much Slayers just plays into the strength of Anamak, and she was like a special answer for those 2 matchups.
She sure was.
And
she also maybe wants to dodge Signar, and that's a thing you can do in this format. So that maybe helped her win percentage a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
So you think 64 is alright? Should that?
I think it will be lower.
Would that number be lower in like 3 months?
Yes, for sure. I think that's absolutely true.
She is a bit soft, like people that put work into it know how to handle her, but it's still not easy if you get like 15 games in and then you have that matchup a bit more solved, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think she's a really, really strong caster with a really linear game plan. And I think if you can disrupt that game plan really effectively, suddenly that's a problem for her. And I think she's a really good, we mentioned earlier, like a gear check. She's a really good gear check for a lot of factions. Can you answer the various tools that are available here? And I think Legion players who want to be at the edge of the faction right now are probably going to have to look really, really hard at what a very powerful complementary list to Animag could be that doesn't put them in like a list chicken type of situation. Yeah. It might be possible to pair her with something that does something similar to what she does, but shores up weaknesses. I just think it would be difficult to say, like, okay, well, this is my thing that beats these things, and it makes good into these things, so I'm going to end up in list chicken a lot of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that would be a mistake to play a list like that.
Yeah.
Also, that brings me to a topic that Jay so likes, Hellmounts. I talked to a Primal Terrorist player that I was facing, and he said...
But
it's not
from Canada? Or?
No, it was from Greek. And
Greek.
He said Greece. Sorry, he was Greek, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So he said he thinks that Hellmounts are soft more or less, and most of the players know how to handle them. You making? You don't think so?
Do I think Hellmouths are solved? I think Hellmouths are very difficult to deal with, and if you bring very specific tools for them, you can build a crafted solution. I think a list that wants to be Primal Terrorist still needs to have a crafted solution to them, and I think a lot of lists don't.
Do you think that that's prioritizing the killing of the tentacles, so they get only one spawn after in the turn after? It's a sort of. If you are playing a proper list, let's say with more activations than, let's say, a few jacks that can, even one drag can be important.
Sure.
Yeah, do you think it's a way to, if you cannot kill the mouth itself?
You have to kill the mouth.
I mean, best thing the Hellmouth can do is infinitely contest the scenario. Yeah. And that's like a lot of people play Hellmouths really aggressively to get good drag play, and I think that's a mistake a lot of the time.
Okay.
The best way to play War Machine, and rapidly learning, is not to get a lot for a bit, it's to get a little bit for nothing. And I think the way to play Hellmouths...
Hey, golden quote. Yeah. No, please know that, listeners.
pay attention to that one, because it's a Tim Banky hot take. But you don't want to play your Hellmouth so that you get to steal a heavy and then they get to kill a Hellmouth. You want to play your Hellmouth so that they never get that scenario at all, and they never interact with your Hellmouth. Like, you put it behind a building, or behind a forest, at the back of a zone, way
contest
back.
the flag every turn.
There was a game where Chris played his Hellmouth basically in his own deployment zone, so that every turn he could place a tentacle in a circle zone behind a large forest. So that tentacle is hard to get to, and hard to interact with, and he gets to replace it anytime you do commit something to properly killing it.
Yeah.
And like that's like 3 levels of keeping your Hellmouth safe. And I think Hellmouths are strongest when their role is to just incrementally advantage your game.
You will understand I will have to cut it off, right? Because I don't want Legion players getting any better with their Hellmouths. It's difficult to handle as it is.
You can have a new cat or a nerfed Hellmouth. That's right.
No, we do not like nerfing things. We prefer to have the more equal footing with everybody. I have a side rant about Animag, because I noticed something and I want to ask Tim about that.
Sure.
When you look at the casters that are presenting lately as the PP, as a War Machine creators company, and Animag, one example.
Yeah.
Striker 2, Colgrima. Now, Iona, what was in the meantime? Sirenia. You see the pattern that you are getting generalistic caster with that supports many, like Sirenia and Animag. Defense buff, obstacle, and feat defensive feat that increases your survivability, plus some additional tech. Animag. defense buff, attack power buff with the dark shout and so on. Iona, power buff, defense buff. Colgrima,
so you get
Clouds,
all the tools.
Defense buff. I see the pattern that like every caster is sort of introductory level. So you have a chance if you play this because you are offering such a wide range of opportunities with this caster that even the Siege 2, because he has, Fury, speed buff with the threat extension, and I don't remember because I don't know Signal so well.
Again, so defensive buff as well.
Sure. Yeah, he's a generalist. He's got scenario play. He's got attrition play. So I think a couple
Do you
things.
think it's intended, or maybe like that?
I think Privateer Press has gotten better at designing casters. I think there were casters that were designed in Mark II and especially in Mark I who simply did not have a role and were relegated to being placed on a shelf for a long period of time. A late example of this is Gorshade 4, the initial version of him. An earlier example of this is, even if you talk about like Mark II, Scorn had a handful of casters who were in that situation. Sturgis is still in that situation. I think Privateer Press listened to their players about what makes a caster compelling, and the CID process has also forced us to look at casters and test them and tweak them and sort of see what works and what doesn't. And if you look at the Grimkin is an early example of this, and the Crucible Guard is a late example of this. Exactly. You can see
Sylvester is a good example.
Yeah,
right?
so Sylvester is an incredible generalist caster with a very specific kind of niche. McKay doesn't have a huge toolbox, but she's a remarkable flexible caster when you put her on the table because she's got a lot of tools that really accelerate the advantages of the Rayless Intercessor that she brought with her. Casters can be very different, but can always be good if they have access to lots of tools that make them good in a lot of places.
Yeah, so this is now faction dependent. If you have faction that can boost the caster that has more limited, then they become better. Mm-hmm. But if the faction is out of touch with the caster, then there is a problem, right?
Yeah, and not only the faction but the theme, because I think more and more we're talking about themes in this circumstance. Yes. When Sarenia was initially talked about, a lot of people said, well, she's only playable in Exemplar Interdiction. But as you can see coming into the WTC, she's got some incredible creators might lists, and she's a more flexible caster than a lot of people are giving her credit for. She's playable in Faithful Masses. I've got a local who was playing her out of theme for a while, and I said, I like many things in this list, and I think any one of them would be a defining element of the theme you eventually decide to play her in, because ultimately this is a game to be played in themes, and it should be, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's because she's really flexible. And I don't think Privateer Press is just designing casters that are stronger or more broken or any of the things that get thrown out there.
I don't think that any caster isn't broken in the latest batches.
Except for Asphyxia's 3, is that what we're saying?
But he's really old.
No, he's fine. And he's not new. You're absolutely right. Animag is very strong. She's got a good performance at the WTC.
But has hard counters that can
match. Absolutely. And an evolving meta that kind of shifts and gets more interesting. I mean, that's the game we're looking for. And they're doing a good job to design it for us.
Yeah, exactly. So guys, if you expect to get more and more one-trick ponies from War Machine, I don't think this is the way it will happen. You will get rather like an idea. So there will be a generalist caster with a certain set of ideas, and you can play that, and not somebody that can kill someone else from 32 inches, for example. Like it was when I was described Mark II, it happened. There were things like that happening in the game, right?
Sure did, yeah.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to second outlier here. That's a bit negative one. Borka 2. He had 21 games and only won 5.
Are you hitting on someone at the table?
No. I don't even know how it's 23% win ratio with Borka 2.
I won Borka 2 games.
Of course you did.
So, okay. Here's the thing about Borka 2. He's a very strong caster with the powerful dimensionality, and I think people are expecting his lists to cover more than they're really capable of covering. Mm-hmm. Also, I think a lot of people are playing him in Storm of the North. It was the overwhelming majority of Borka 2 lists were played in Storm of the North.
But he's best in the Beasts.
Hot take, I like that. I think Borka 2 is... I like my Borka 2 list the best. And I second guessed myself a little bit going into WTC. I was like, are a lot of people going to know this list and really be teched for it and really understand it and know what's going on? And my friend Josh, who played against the list a fair bit because he plays Scorn, and the list is undefeated against Scorn. Like, I've never lost a Scorn game with Borka 2. He answers everything that faction can bring, and it's a real pain. And I'm undefeated at the WTC with him against Scorn.
Yeah.
Like, I played against Lucio on the German team, and at the end of the game he said, "Is there something you think I should have done differently?" And I was like, "I don't think so." and he did very
Don't
well.
play that matchup. Don't choose. Who chose the matchup?
They did.
Okay.
So
blame the captain.
No, and I said, like, here's Tim playing Trollbloods, and here's Bubba, and he's like, Tim.
Even before.
I don't want the Slayers.
So anyway, but the point I'm making though is I think Borka 2 is a very, very strong caster, and I think he was very well represented at the WTC. Did he acquit himself well of that? No, because I think a lot of troll players were expecting to one-list Kogrima, realizing they'd found very bad Kogrima matchups, being forced to push themselves into a Borka 2, and in Storm of North he's just not quite as flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, I think a lot of people don't understand what the list I'm playing does. And that goes for people who are adopting it and also people who are playing against it.
Exactly. Well, I had a chance to play against Borka 2 in the, I don't know if it was your iteration because it was quite a long time ago, but it was a beast iteration, and getting stationary with stalkers and infantry was not really nice, right?
No fun at all. Yeah, let's move on to Retribution of Syra. It's Elara 2, and she's got like 64% win.
That's amazing, because I think that she's not so...
Yeah, we have to look at it. That
How
it's
many games?
14 games and 9
It's
won.
not so little.
Not so few, but it's on the lesser side of the...
Yeah, but 14 is something. I mean, if it would be 4 or 5, then I wouldn't count at all.
64 is pretty good. I don't know. It's definitely not a good...
I mean, she's so one-dimensional, I think. Because I think most of them...
So, she's another gear check list, and at the WTC format, it's more possible to put people into bad matchups with a gear check. I also think people in general are underestimating the Retribution faction right now. And
even before the CID?
Yes, I agree. I think that a lot of people either don't have a lot of people playing Retribution at home, or Retribution's being a little bit underrepresented,
yes, exactly.
and they're getting themselves surprised by things. I don't think Elara 2 is the best caster in the faction, but I think she presents a very specific skew, and I think she can beat Scar, and I think that's a very important thing to do.
Slayers also.
Correct, yes, and I think being able to beat Scar and Slayers is the key to having a playable list.
Quite cool.
Yeah.
So the next half-flyer I really like. It's Haley too, and she has
Swan in heart. At heart.
15% win percent. 15. No, not 50.
Fall from
15.
grace.
She
15,
was
1-5.
There were 10 players with Haley too, and they played
How many games?
Total 13 games.
So okay, something at least.
So it means they really had her tagged for specific matchup, probably because this means more or less one drop per WTC per player, right?
Yeah.
This means she wasn't favorite drop for them, and they lost most of their games. So they were probably not really happy that they took her out.
What do you think?
I don't think it represents her strength. I don't know. She was out of the meta, so to say, for a long time. I was surprised that 10 players decided to take her in, and maybe she was untested, secret tech kind of, that backfired. That is my hot take.
Yeah. So the other thing I think is that a lot of Signar players chose to play to the very strongest elements of the faction with their primary lists. We saw a bunch of Haley 3 players. We saw a bunch of Sloan players. We saw people playing really, really powerful linear dimension casters. Yeah. And if we want to invite some incense on your podcast by describing them as a sweeper pivot kind of pairing.
Of course we do.
I think if you play with a sweeper list in Signar, like a Sloan or any kind of list that represents a very, very powerful, strong dimension that presents the strongest things your faction can do. You want something that can be very flexible if you end up in a situation where they throw you under the bus into a really bad matchup, like you end up getting stuck into Slayers, or you end up getting stuck somewhere very awkward. If you're playing a pivot list and you're expecting Haley 2 to cover everything else in the game right now, I think she's significantly less good at doing that than she once was. And I think I'm going to play well against everything else at the game, and then not doing that when you're tossed under the bus 10 odd times, it doesn't entirely surprise me of a 15% win percentage.
Yeah, I mean, we tried out, because Rafal wanted to try out his Denegra 2 list with 7 heavies, was it?
Yeah.
Versus Haley 2, and
heavies.
I was definitely out of touch with.
Sort of Asphyxious type list, but I didn't want to play it, so I played just DJ and 6 Slayers. So.
And Haley 2 can handle it. Even with me, like, not playing Signar for a year, I could handle it pretty well. Seven
models, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the real WTC, I played with the Scar 1, and it was too much.
Yeah.
For Haley 2.
Yes.
Yeah, again, can handle Slayers, can't handle Scar 1 is a bad place to be.
Yeah, and we can side note that Haley 3, that is known to be a workhorse for Signar, managed average 50%er, which is pretty good because that list is for very long now in the meta, and it's still holding up. So everybody knows how it works, and it's still holding up 50% win percentage, which is pretty good, I think.
I mean, if your faction's in a good place in the game and your very, very known commodity primary list that does most of the work for you in your faction is at a 50%, that probably indicates a healthy place for your faction.
Yes, exactly.
Signar's fine, folks.
So we can now move to the unhealthy faction, Protectorate of Menot.
And the big comeback.
So
the 2016's hot take.
So Harbinger 1 and High Reclaimer 1, they so Harbinger scored 63% win rate, and High Reclaimer scored 69% win rate, which is
and
really
not even one assassination, I heard. And we all remember 2016's and assassination going wide, and so yeah.
Yeah, what can we say here other than...
Judicator?
Well, so the Judicator is very strong. The Judicator is in an incredibly strong place. Signs Importance is a hell of a drug. 4 things about Protectorate right now. They came out of CID strong, and they needed it. They were not in a good place before. They're very surprising. Almost universally, everyone I talked to on some of the best teams at the event this year was like, we tested against Protectorate, but we didn't have enough time to fully understand how strong they were, or what quite to do with them.
What is that?
that's a drink.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
Protectorate is a really
nice.
We talk about them sometimes in the War Machine community as like a fundamentals faction. They don't do anything specifically special. They just do everything well. If your order of activations is strong, you're good at Protectorate. If your positioning is strong, you're good at Protectorate. If you know how to play the game well, and you can leverage attrition, and you can do math, you can play Protectorate well. And what that means is, when things come out of CID and you see something like Animag, you have to spend some time workshopping her list for a while before you're really comfortable taking her to an event like this. Conversely, I feel like Protectorate players were primed to have their tech quickly and early and well refined for this format. And I think, especially honestly out of the Polish teams, we saw some really incredible Protectorate lists.
Yeah. The double Judicator tech was really cool. They like it a lot. I mean, because as we mentioned before in the podcast, we played in a different system, and we always our main, let's say not a hot take, but our main idea was, if you want to win, there are certain things that you have to do. You have to be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a good list, and on the bonus side, if the list is easy to play, it's multiplies everything that you put into the preparation.
Yeah.
And it really, if you can avoid certain things, because hard matchups for the two colossal list, and just multiply the effectiveness of the double science portents or even science ported ones and the colossal power, then it's only bonuses for them, and this is what they learned. And it was like, if we can share the tech, it was like 2 months before at WTC that they followed it out.
Yeah, the high reclaimer comeback we can and his high score we can attribute to him being kind of new and unsolved yet.
But do we really? Because everybody played 2 years ago. He was like also
with
having
two colossals or a colossal that has
no. But I mean, everybody knew how it works. But
yeah, but people forget.
Quite fast. That's true.
I mean, one of the big lessons from Magic the Gathering, which I used to play competitively, is that there aren't a lot of new decks. There's archetypes that have existed many times, and if you can find a winning archetype, like a structure of deck that won very, very competitively before, and you can replicate it with things that do similar things in a modern environment, that's a recipe for success. And High Reclaimer didn't stop being good, he just stopped being the same shape as the kind of list that needs to win. And when the shape of that list changed, he's ready to play again.
Yeah, this is more psychological than the power level, I think, because people like to follow the steps to take the easiest path or the safest path. It's not worse, it's not bad, it's just how it is, because people are the things, they work like that, they think about it like that. So when everybody played the assassination with sprays or with exemplars or something like that, or with Idrians, and then suddenly it couldn't be done anymore, then people just dropped that, because it was easier to change to something new than to try to take again.
Yep.
And I'm sure that with the new Judicator, the High Reclaimer will be, I think, that in the meta for the, let's say, 6 months now.
Agreed. And I mean, if he falls off because people develop really incredible Judicator answers, well, then I suspect we'll wait 3-4 more months and see a resurgence of him.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not going away, folks.
He's like one of the staple casters that was not killed 5 times like Haley to to bring her in line, right?
He did get a significant nerf, but Signs of Importance is still a really good spell.
Exactly.
So we can move to Grimkin, and we can bring out the statistics for Heretic and King of Nothing, because they are pretty scary. The Heretic had 18% win rate and King of Nothing 14% win rate.
What did Dreamer have? 60%? 58?
Dreamer has 58.
So here's what I think.
Did you know 58 or it was just
that was a guess? That was a guess. I think that people were one listing Dreamer, and they were bringing their flavor to taste second list, and I think they got put into their good 60%er matchups they felt pretty comfortable with and played Dreamer, or they got thrown under the bus and they played their off list.
Yeah.
Hot take. That's my
opinion. But I think it's similar in our team also. But do you think that because the Heretic list seems to be like a Dreamer list, but it's on the other hand, it looks like that. Come on, Science Portals is better than not having Science Portals. Is it going to be like the name of this podcast, this episode?
Science Portals podcast.
Science Importance is a hell of a drug.
But we noted that there is a lot of silent portents like effects showing up lately in the game, right?
Yeah.
There are certain things that are happening that are becoming. I mean, this
it's kind of dev team suddenly likes that effect showing up more.
Yeah.
And it's drawing people in because that really ups the dice mat, right?
It's like removes a little bit of randomness, because it really does.
Yeah, it does. It removes honestly a lot of randomness.
So if you are good with math and if you are good with strategy, you get more out of this than if you are less good, because you can use the.
If you're a less good player too, you get a lot out of it, because it removes tilts.
It equalizes.
It makes you feel like, well, 7s just happened, so here's my 7s. Good players, unfortunately, will say things like, well, 8.3 should be statistically likely, so I'll just try to hard roll it, and then they fail and they get mad at themselves. But I don't know. It's do I think that it's too normalized? That we're seeing too many people get signs importance effects, and it's just everyone has signs importance? It's one of the most powerful effects in the game, so I don't really love that it's being thrown all over the place. But often it's conditional, and often it's tied to a caster. So I'm not...
But Iona gets that. I mean, the twins get that, right? We will see. This is one of the questions to the community to check in 6 months, okay?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. It's going to be an interesting question. In 6 months, do we feel like this wave of development cycle that includes a lot more signs importance effects kind of teeters off? We see less of it.
Yeah.
The remaining development really focuses on nailing signs importance as a faction identity element of only a few factions.
Grima?
Signs importance on spellcasting is I mean, obviously...
But on spray, Mr. Banky. Spray usually hit a lot of things.
Well, if you've got a spray 10, obviously that's a 3-cost spell. Right, guys?
Okay, so... But one I would like to ask for a friend. Do we think that King of Nothing is as bad as the percentage shows? Or?
A couple of years ago, the thought process was either King or Nothing is very, very high skill cap, or maybe he's just bad.
And every time it shows, it's...
For now, statistics say he's bad, I would say. But
again,
maybe he's not yet solved.
The big proviso there is that I think these are people who are often one-listing Dreamer and off-listing in terrible matchups where they're like, well, Dreamer just dies here. Maybe King of Nothing can pull out a crazy assassination. And then if they don't pull out a crazy assassination and lose the game, their team's like, well, you went under the bus. That's kind of what we expected. And if they do, maybe they upset the matchup process. Do I think that's a good place to have him in a Steamroller environment? Probably not. Do I think that there's not room to continue to expand on King of Nothing's kit? Well, that's absurd. Like, I think he's a Scything Touch caster. He's got access to multiple armor debuffs. Like,
in the different faction, he would be really cool.
Even if you just brought like 4 Skinnamones and you didn't bring a bunch of infantry and you just used Desolation plus Clouds to really like deliver your army, I think he's a strong caster and I think he has lists.
Okay. Marcin, what you have now?
Yeah, let's move on to Callous 1 from Legion of Everlight. 66.6%.
Having 2 armies in one seems to be a good thing.
So, a couple things about Callous. Callous has actually made a pretty significant mark on Mark III. He's
sorry to interrupt, but he was one of the worst casters, always being example. The Dark Guidance always laughed at him every fucking time.
Yeah. And yet in Mark III, here he is making his triumphant return with a kit that didn't change a lot.
Not really.
Fundamentally, his kit is very similar. I think Legion has changed a lot. For one thing, Legion never used to play infantry at all, and now they play infantry quite a bit. And he's obviously a very, very infantry support-focused caster. Yeah. Hellmouths with Unyielding are pretty good.
Rolling one die against unyielding things.
Let's do some fun math for a second. You charge a Hellmouth with a Slayer.
Yeah.
You combo strike.
Of course.
Power strike 22.
Yeah.
It's under Unyielding.
So
So now that combo strike attack needs to roll. Wait for it. A 2 die. Dice plus 2, 8.
Well, doesn't it get Blightwing Aura as well?
Oh, well now you need to roll a 2 die 10. So if you roll something like a 2 die 7, and then you buy an attack at POW 16, because of course you allocated 3 focus. Yeah. Now you buy your attack at POW 16, which you boost to get to 2 dice, and your POW 16 attack is dice minus 6. So I real hope you roll a 9.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
And now, even if you succeed, you traded a Slayer for a free Helmut.
That's a win.
That's
a huge win.
Listen, guys, to the 10 minutes ago part of the podcast and remind yourself why trading has 10 points for a free solo for unit is a win.
I traded my Ninja pick for a Helmut and I thought it's a great trade.
Yeah,
because
you're right.
Because from my understanding of that matchup, if I destroy the Helmut on one flank, this means I have a chance of collapsing that flank with Instanario and everything. So
Yeah, but coming back to the colors.
Ninja pick is very important for us.
Unyielding on infantry.
Correct.
Unyielding on infantry, because he has that, right?
Sure does.
Signs and portraits. And feat that makes like crazy Warhammer fantasy things with the summoning, because it isn't in the War Machine at all almost, that you can bring back models that are destroyed coming back on the table, right? So maybe he was not so bad. It was just infantry play that was not present.
There used to be a Crix Theme Force that did that.
Yeah, it got pretty good. we have a person here that played that quite successfully.
a little bit.
Yeah.
So Callus's feat often reads as a time walk. It's a really challenging feat to play around, because he puts a ton of pressure on you with Raw Wings.
Yeah.
Raw Wings, which are often the best thing in the Primal Terrorist Theme Force, especially for Callus.
Mm-hmm.
Those Raw Wings are defense 13, armor 11. When the Blightbringer Aura, they go up to armor 13. Under Callus's Unconquerable, they go up to armor 15. So 13, 15.
Yeah.
And they're basically pieces of garbage. And when you kill them, they turn into Incubi, who are defense...
Who are better?
16
armor...
16, I want to say, maybe 17, like possibly 19. Like it's not good. Also, pro tip: because it's +3 defense for soulless models, the Hellmouth Maw is defense 13 under Callus's feat, and maybe if it's got some cover, it's defense 17. So now you're like, okay, second round of shooting, let's finally finish that with this bomber. What's your defense value? And they're like, you need 12s to hit. You're like, fuck this game.
I didn't write up for this.
All right.
It's JVM's fault.
Yes.
My favorite Legion player.
Chris Orr had his part in playing Callus. He forced that man into the meta in a really big way.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
played him at WTC 2 years ago, and I want to say last year too. Just constantly bringing like really compelling infantry choices. But obviously Primal Terrors has given Callus his moment in the sun. Bringing the Blightbringer back to the game and just making that theme force really compelling as a Legion infantry option.
And this is another side round, maybe like 2 minutes. Do we think that all the Colossals will get the revamp, at least the point cost revamp, like we see Retribution, Judicator, Blightbringer?
Now we need Signar.
So
Crocodile.
I'm gonna sidestep the question a little bit. A lot of people think that it makes sense for the game to do a Colossal and Gargantuan CID, not dissimilarly to the way they did a Battle Engine CID. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be a really big mistake. For one thing, I think Battle Engine CID had a bit too large of a scope in mind. I think
it was not properly tested.
It thoroughly tested some pieces. The AFG, I think, is actually a pretty good example of something that got adequately tested during the Battle Engine CID. But I would argue that the Siege Animantrax model did not perhaps get as fully tested during that process. And if the Siege Animantrax didn't exist, would Scorn need buffs in other places? Probably true.
But Scorn is only 40% win percentage, so...
Well,
overall.
So yeah, fair enough. The Siege Animantrax has answers for it, but the real point I'm making about Colossals is that I think the right way to adjust Colossals in the game is to take them all gradually either down in points, up in power level, or some combination of those two things to give them a very well-defined, unambiguous role in their factions. But to do them one at a time really gently, so you determine if you overcorrect or undercorrect too much, and avoid making the same mistake the next time.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if they took the Stormwall into CID right now and started working on it, having just done what they did with the Judicator, they might be a little bit more conservative in their approach.
I would be afraid if, for example, they will revamp Prime Axion and count it for 31 points and give it 2 special rules additionally.
Yeah, new rule, the Prime Axiom has it's Tokyo's auto hit.
Yeah, for example.
And
because there was one test and they lost.
It's 31 points. And it, instead of having 5 shots with the Acela Spiker, it has 15. Which is not a prime number.
All right, let's move to the worst faction that loses players all the time. It's Kador, of course.
There is one loud Chris that is
so to put it into perspective, Masters was won by a Kador player, right?
Yes.
WTC Masters and WTC winning team had Kador, so Chris, who did very well.
And crows get ears.
Why are we talking about Kador? Because Karchev had 72% win percentage.
How many games, Marcin?
11. 8 of them won.
So that's a small sample. So that sounds to me a little bit like a situation where Karchev, who's an aggressive skew and can present as a really powerful sweeper type of list in Kador, he was put into favorable matchups and he won them emphatically. Yeah. And that it doesn't surprise me that one of the more linear but powerful casters in the Kador faction who runs their best jack brick with some of the best jacks does well in his good matchups.
Maybe this be also a case that people so concentrated on Asphyxius thinking Karchev jack spam is a worse version of Asphyxius 3, and in that case they were mistaken because there's a large difference between the Slayer and a Juggernaut there is
even
a
for
huge,
11 points.
Huge difference between those jacks.
With Carapace against shooting, you go to arm 21. I started at arm 20.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got arm 22 with an yielding in melee, right?
He doesn't.
He doesn't give them an yielding.
He personally has a yielding.
And he's really hard to assassinate.
But they've got like 30 boxes each, or 36,
if we are talking about Kador, can you look at the other different casters that were present? I think it would be... who was popular also?
Vlad 2, he got 57%, which is also bad, of course, because it's the bad faction. And then Karchev.
I think
Zerkova 1 had 42%. So...
Any sources on the list?
Yeah, exactly. Boy, I'm happy that there are not many social one players in the world.
Maybe
nobody wants to play this.
Maybe she had too little representation to show.
Yeah, little sample size.
Social one? Come on, why nobody's playing?
Any butchers there?
Nope, neither.
Huh. All right.
Maybe there are not all the details yet.
Yeah, probably that's not a complete statistics. So we'll.
But I think that social one is, in the infantry machine.
She's pretty amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And
got a real good feat.
Yeah, stationary whole army seems like a quite cool thing to do. But okay, don't play her.
It's pretty good against Animag and Chaos.
Yeah. So we already mentioned Madrak. He's got pretty good representation, 25 games. Although
Madrak won.
Yeah. I thought it will be more games. 25 seems like because he was pretty well represented.
Kogrima was much higher than him.
Yeah, and he's got like 60% win percentage, which is solid, I think. Just
solid?
On the
solid is 50.
No, I think the 6 or 57, 60s is solid. It's
it's healthy. Maybe not.
It's still
good.
Kind of
I think
healthy.
It's good.
Yeah. What can I say? Madrak's pretty good.
Yeah. If it was, I think if it was when was Madrak's CID?
November last year.
Yes.
Yeah. So if it was half a year ago, that would probably be in 70s.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree. Madrak was much more powerful in January of this year than he is now. More people have good responses to him. A lot of people still underestimate the tech that he can deliver, and he's a more complicated caster than a lot of people give him credit for. I know a lot of troll players who chose not to play Madrak because they thought he was boring or he was too linear, and I spent a lot of time with him working on unlocking some of those tools, and I think once you do, you'll find he's got a lot of depth.
Exactly.
He's also the only caster I know of in the game that
can we compare the Kogrima
twice.
If we are talking about
hot take, Kogrima got less than 50%.
Okay.
Probably not by a lot, but I bet she's a little below the 50%.
Yeah, Kogrima got 48%. But she
amazing
had 74
guys,
games.
he's not using any ball or Imperial Tarot or anything like that, okay? We are looking at him and he's not. Not even killing a goat in the
but
corner.
It's, Troubles are think in general in a good place. Although if we look at the whole faction win percentage, I luckily somebody counted this. It's 44.7% win rate.
For?
Yeah, 44%
For the
win
trolls.
rate for the troll, but as a whole faction.
Yeah, because Borka lowered that, and Korgima was just
Yeah.
like a mid-pack, so...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think, again, the problem is Storm of the North. It's a very strong list. It's really powerful. It's got good linear dimensionality, but it doesn't adequately answer the things that you're likely to see that are going to challenge you, and it lacks flexibility. And I think building lists that are linear and lack flexibility but are powerful questions works for 3 months and then stops working.
Yeah.
If you want your list to be good for years, it has to be...
Generalistic sort of way.
Well, not even just generalistic, but full of flexible answers.
Yeah, so we can tweak a little bit and change the outlier of the list, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, I think if you want to win for a while, you play the Northkin Stone Attachment. And if you want to win for a longer time, you play the Stone Scrap.
Exactly. And laugh at the Bright Engine.
In the Troll matchup, if you're... So, two things. First of all, objectives are chosen after you pick lists, but before you choose side, which a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
So if you're playing Trolls, hot take, here's a little tidbit for folks who are playing Trolls out there, and you're playing against Scar 1, reveal your lists. They're like Scar 1, you're like Madrak 1. That's not how it went down. Oops. If you reveal your Madrak 1 list, and then you say, my objective is going to be healing. What's your objective? And they're like, it'll also be healing. And you're like, yes. Because they have to choose Pathfinder, or their Wraith engine can't charge anything.
Yeah, you can just wimp around at the speed of 3.5. It happened to me at the Iron Mood last year when I was playing against Protectorate and I didn't know what Sanctifier does.
Yeah.
And I lost to Hybrid Kramer.
Yeah,
No, to the Harbinger, sorry.
So the next on the list is Ostrom faction.
The Dwarfs.
Meaning dwarfs.
The Zerman dwarfs.
63% win rate. 73 matches, so pretty large sample
Yeah, it's one
size.
of the largest sample sizes, I think. 73.
And notable mention his partner in crime, Magnus 2, who got 59% with 27 matches.
And they are not a real faction.
They are not a real faction, of course. But Ostrom is solid for another year in a row. He's been on every WTC with solid representation, right? I think.
He's an incredibly flexible generalist with a deep kit and a really powerful set of tools. Yeah. Mercs are high this year.
Yeah.
They're doing really well. I wonder if every person who brought Magnus 2 played him on Mirage and spread the net.
Yeah, I suppose so. We played it, but we got assassinated on turn 2 by Josh Bates.
Ah, yes. He's played that matchup before. My boy Josh, shout out to Josh, captain of Canada Moose. They did incredibly well this year.
And our colleague forgot that they trample. They do trample, guys. Up to is it 11?
Threat.
It is
13.
Yeah.
Auto knockdowning casters. It's pretty cool for tech.
It is.
So unfortunate thing is we cannot say any representation of the other casters because there are too few matches to really say anything about them. It's actually pretty sad that it's only...
No, there was Ashlyn. I saw it on the
one
group. There was Ashlyn like 15%. Gaston. No, Ashlyn got 40.
Rafal, I said representation.
Okay.
We've got 2 matches of Ashlyn with one lost, one won. What can you say? Yeah, she won one, last one. Gordon. Well, maybe we can mention Gordon. He had 4 games, won 3 of them.
Yeah, because he was in 2 Australia teams.
And a Canadian team.
Okay.
Yeah, so this means this was
Did he work?
a special
No,
tool.
on my team on Canada Goose, our second team. I think so. Corey Doyle is playing him, who's the so-called pantsless man of War Machine. And he's done really well with Gordon. His only lost condition with Gordon is clock. And normally he just runs 50 steelheads at his opponent and says, can you chew through this? And they come up and they do some work, and then Gordon says, go away, and then he wins on scenario.
Yeah.
So with that said, we can move on to Crix again. Scar 3 had 68% win percentage.
60?
68, sorry. 68 win percentage
68.
and 41 games played.
So something significant, I would say. And so many people, including Aaron Whale, that admitted that, thought that she was so...
Bad.
Bad, it was not a proper word, I would say. Boring and not flashy enough, maybe.
So it turns out, hot take, 2 deck guns and a hand cannon
On the caster that is hard to kill.
are pretty good at having caster contributions throughout the course of a game.
This is the first caster, I think. One of the first casters in Crix. But because I played her quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the first casters in Crix that has real immense... presence on the table by itself, not only supporting the army.
Yeah, turn to turn, significant damage output, really big, ability to just put work in every single turn. She doesn't even need to cast her spells. Her feat's fine. It's not very good.
Getting 11 focus on turn, it's not bad.
It's fine. It's the thing is, a lot of people, when they first were looking at Scar, were thinking about trying to build her to make use of her full kit, because her feat asks you to cast all of her spells. And that's a mistake. She's good in every single theme, because she brings something valuable to every single theme force. In Dark Host, she gives you speed on Banes, which is really powerful, and D-Cell, which helps you on the approach. Mortal Fear also is really nice with her, and Dereg is available in the Dark Host theme. In Slaughterfleet, which I think is arguably her home theme, she brings Dash, which is a really powerful spell, D-Cell, which is really good, Guided Fire if you want to bring guns to a knife fight, and obviously Draconic Blessing, which helps the damage output of a list that doesn't have much damage output.
And Recursion. Yeah.
She doesn't have a mat fixer, which is why I think she's really good in Slaughterfleet, where they've got a lot of native mat fixing. But we had her on, I want to say, all 3 of our Canadian teams. Maybe only 2 of them. The West Coast guys may have not ended up taking her. But Matt McWatters and Bubba Dalton worked really, really hard together sometimes, but also independently, to build a list for her that really sang. And if you want to just crib a net list, play Bubba's Scar list. I worked on it with him a whole bunch. Dave Beauchamp put a ton of work into making that list click. And it's a really excellent list. It's my favorite generalist list the Crix has ever had. It truly does do everything a lot of the time, and a lot of players were surprised by how effective it was against Primal Terrors. Fun aside, my favorite story of the WTC. We're playing against Belgium round 1, and Bubba's Belgium opponent, who's an absolute gentleman, really nice guy to play against, suddenly realizes halfway through the game that, oh, this is a bad matchup for me. And he starts losing the game, and Bubba's Kraken comes over, and it puts an attack into the Blightbringer. And Bubba says, Power Strength 26. And his opponent just gives him a look like, why? And Bubba says, did you want to know why? And his opponent says, no.
Yeah, people were surprised when my stalkers were having power 19.
If you are on topic of stalkers, we can notable mention Scar 1, which had 70 games and 54 win percentage, which is solid. It's nothing game breaking, but she is very long time with her game for more than a year with similar list. Last year she was also bringing stalkers.
She was not popular at the last WTC. She started to become popular at the end of the 2017, and only gaining popularity because of she's such a perfect match in sort of the way for the Asphyxius. Totally different. I mean, incorporeal versus box spam and things like that working together.
I mean, I'm gonna respectfully disagree. It's not a pairing we ended up bringing to the WTC, but what can I say about Scar 1? I think she's a shark. She hasn't evolved, especially in a millennium, and she's very, very strong. And I think very, very strong lists have a place in the meta. I don't think she needs to evolve, and I think she's very good. And I think if a 54% win percentage is an acceptable rate for a incredibly known caster who people have teched for, have learned about, and have known about for many, many years, then I would be moderately more comfortable if with that sample size that number was closer to 50%. But it's pretty good.
All right.
But
so
she does not require nerf. I don't think so.
if we are on topic of
Probably
crits
not.
and probably not healthy to game win percentages, it's Terminus with 60, but it's 60% win percentage, but it was only 15 games. So
Only 15, and we are talking about Lara 14. And it's not
in case of Crix where there were 60 players, it's only 15 games.
I think that is largely my friend Lorenz from the Switzerland team, who is my favorite opponent from last year's WTC, my favorite match that we played, because it was the Ghost Fleet mirror, and it was very technical and very fun. But he played Terminus Ghost Fleet, and I believe I am personally responsible for Terminus receiving a jack point in the CID, so that you can play Barathrum and 2 Arc Nodes now.
yes, that's right.
And he's a compelling caster that fits a particular playstyle. I think really works well and has a good kit if you work hard to unlock it. He's definitely Lauren's favorite caster, and it's another example. So Lorenz, I believe, won all of his games. If he didn't go 5-1, he went 6-0, and I think he won listed Terminus. If he didn't play him every round, I'd be surprised. So he's a significant portion of that statistic that we're talking about. And in his case, it's definitely someone who's elected to play a caster who maybe isn't at the pinnacle of competitive meta, but is certainly a very comfortable caster that is powerful enough to play and incredibly well known by its pilot. And I think that's an underappreciated element of the game that people on WTC lists often
try to be too wise.
Yeah, they follow the meta to the point. It needs to be new, it needs to be answering everything, etc. We talk about Crix enough. Before we move on to a topic close to my heart, so Signar, I want to note Circle of Ouroboros, seen as one of the worst faction. It didn't reach Outliers level. It's seen as a worst faction in the game, or one of the worst.
In USA.
But let's say the Bones, Kruger and Bradigus, they both had close to 57% win percentage.
So
that means the whole faction had around 57.
How many games of Kruger?
So I got Torla here 44 games and Kruger 68 games.
100 games, that's quite
100 games, 57% win percentage.
You know what, guys? I think I'd be inclined to agree with you. I think the Bones of Ouroboros faction is really good.
Yeah, right.
Since the CID helps usually, and they are getting the second one. And go figure, Kriegs get free, so...
I'm just wondering what will happen if if it will change again into Circle of Ouroboros faction, or will it change of Bones / Tarn faction, and the rest will stay.
That's twice as interesting as Bones.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a fact.
Small things can make you happy.
Let's not ask for everything at once, people.
Yeah.
So,
but 57, it's
I think it's solid. I don't think it's unhealthy. Although I cannot.
Do you like playing against Kruger?
No, I don't like it. But
let's not just for our friend Tomek.
How will we do that? We need some kind of elaborate plan that
No. We invite to Poland Mr. Pagani, make with him a 2 weeks road trip, and then
after that he'll be so brainwashed. All right. So the topic, so the last outlier I want to mention is Sloan. I never liked playing Sloan, but that's just me. She seems kind of boring, but
she's sweeper.
She only had 10 games, but won only 3 of them, so 30% win percentage seems like pretty bad. Why I wanted to, that's a conversation starter, not generally about her in particular, but in general about Signar, because Signar was surprisingly well represented. Surprisingly, I say, because kind of a lot of
the feeling was against that.
The feeling was against that. It seemed like a lot of very good players left Signar, and it's seemed like
we noticed, because I wanted just 2 days before the WTC, my friend did a check for me. What was the double or triple representation of the lists of the factions in the top
first or second spot? You mean?
No. Top teams. there was 2 times Protectorate, 2 times Kriegs, 2 times Kador not, but maybe Orboros in Poland, for example, and things like that. But we noticed that only, I think in the, let's say, 10 top teams that we were estimating could win the WTC, there was only 1 Signar, or 2 maybe. Yeah.
So it seems Signar
So maybe not
was well represented with 30 people, but didn't do so well. In general, faction had 38% win percentage, which has to be one of the lowest. We'll probably see in a week or two the full statistics, and then we'll see how they placed.
Yeah, but 38 is really. What do you think, Tim? Because this is something that's really.
So, if I had a good Haley 3 player, I would have taken her this year. Like I would have taken the player who plays Haley 3, whomever they might be. She's a great caster. I think probably the best caster in the game, and I think with time, anyone can be unbelievably strong with her. Having said that, a lot of people don't, or a lot of people want a Snowflake, and they want to do their own thing, and they want to not play Haley 3 because, I feel like people tech against her, and their tech is garbage, but that's not important. I think Signar players sometimes defeat themselves. And I think it's actually very difficult, and maybe we should think about this when we're talking about if we feel like there's a Crix problem that needs to be addressed. It's difficult for players to come back from multiple nerfs to their faction. Okay. And I think whether or not Signar was so head and shoulders above the game that they needed to be nerfed multiple times, it is certainly true that the player perception is that it's challenging to reinvent yourself after your casters all change. Yes. And a bunch of the kind of major banner bearers in Signar stepped away from the faction because they felt like it had changed enough that they wanted to try something fresh and not feel like they were playing the same things but with less tools. If they made significant overhauls to the Crix faction to bring them in line with the power level of everyone else, I probably would take some time off from playing Crix because it takes an adjustment to be comfortable with those things again. I think Signar is in a rebound phase. If they were a hockey team, I'd talk about them as being in a rebuilding year. I think the tools are there. I think they could very much be where they need to be. And if I was a player thinking about picking up Signar right now, I wouldn't hesitate to do so. And I would definitely see them as a faction that has some space to figure something out.
You bold guy, you hear this? Huh? This is my best Russian accent, and you hear this. I don't know.
So,
do you know who are you talking to?
as a special snowflake that I really loved playing Haley 3, but with time, moving so many models.
I encountered Trust. And it seems like Haley to get feedback again.
Rust is like a Haley.
And I have 7 models.
Exactly. The thing I loved about Signar is playing Haley 2 before the last nerf where she got limited to only 5 to the 3 models.
Yeah.
That was the time where she was after a few nerfs, but not one too many. And I really loved the Travis list with 4 heavies, 4 Stormclads. That was my best time with Haley 2, and I played like 50 something games with her, and really missed that. And
Anthony Gibbs, who's in my opinion the best upcoming North American player, is playing Haley 2 right now with a bunch of Centurions.
I listened to that. Yeah, I think he is one of the should be one of the people you should watch too if you want to some new tech to be followed.
Yeah, he builds really neat lists. Yeah. Lists that
he loves Centurions a lot.
We do
with good reason.
Like we do, yeah. I like Centurions.
Honestly, like outside of Poland, I think he's the person who's surprised me the most with lists. Yeah. Like obviously, I think Polish innovation is kind of famous in War Machine, but we talk about his lists and look at his lists and say like, what does this list even do? And then like 10 minutes later, we're like, oh dear, like that's a problem. Like it's a very good list. You know?
Yeah, this is like we were dodging because we like both Kane 3, and we think that even if he is not so good and he has hard matchups, especially on the caster kill side, if you prepare a list for him, he will sweep so many lists in the current meta, like Melox, like Anamax, like any multi-wounds, like I don't know, maybe not Slayers, but for example Scar Ones and things like that. And
Armored Core doesn't like him, especially.
No. And anything that cannot like kill him outright with this long range assassination, and just putting remember one Centurion into the charger list.
As an anchor piece to hold your own zone and spread the net, and there's a bunch of good things that piece can do.
It was just enough that we changed one thing, you remember, before the Iron Mood, and it was like a game changer.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised that people are Kane 2 even, or even Kane 1 with the trenchers. Because getting Kane the cover. The trench.
Oh, the blockhouse. Yeah.
Any of the Kanes getting something that he is not shot off, luckily or unluckily, by the magic or the knockdown or things like that, can change his game. And we are dodging that also. That you can play, because I played Scar with only 40 points in the Slaughter Fleet, okay? And it was okay, maybe not the best, but okay. You can play, for example, 4 chargers with Kane 3 and add to that trenchers just for the survivability, or Kane 2 or whatever Kane you want, and for the utilityness of the trenchers that they bring, for the presence of the scenario and things like that. So maybe it's not a top tech, but we were surprised both that nobody. I would hate to play against that. Many players would hate to play it. Something.
I remember that one of the also game changers for my Nemo 3 list was putting in Centurion, single Centurion who had an armor buff and no knockdown, no push from Nemo.
Yeah,
and it was also
we kicked out Dynamo of the list.
Yeah, Dynamo had to go, and because Nemo never missed damage output. Dynamo was great. He could take a heavy off the table, but he would lose on scenario. But
and Nemo's problem was coming forward almost always. Yeah. And Dynamo, I don't know. I played Dynamo lists and I played not Dynamo lists, and my biggest criticism of him is that I think he, you often don't want to feat the turn that Dynamo can get a beat on a heavy, right? You want to feat to do crazy, incredible work with Fireflies. They're on a feat to kill an entire unit of Sentinels.
And then you've got Dynamo left, for example, or
Yeah, and then you're like, well, this heavy would have been real great feeding with that gun, but it's not.
And of course, even one shield guard. Whatever, sack pound, whatever.
Yeah.
And you are losing, how much does he cost? 18?
Yep.
Yeah. You got 2 charges for that. And you've got 4 shots. On the different targets, so.
And they never get negated.
Yeah.
But you don't get rerolls to hit.
Yeah. Or silent portents. Alright. With that note, we went to the end of the list. I think we can slowly wrap up. We have been bantering. By bantering, I mean me and Rafal, and with the golden thoughts from team. I think this is one of our best episodes now.
Is there a proverb? I mean, is there a saying like golden thought in the English, really? Because this is a Polish thing.
No. What does it mean?
It's like an golden thought is Polish translation of the English translation of our thing. So let's say we talked, and then somebody says something like something that is eternal. That the sentence is always true, or things like that. So how is it in English? Something that is like classic, but not in the way that everybody says that, but it's almost always true. Like, I don't know, Scar 1 is good. This is something like a golden thought, and you are sometimes putting something in that we think that is golden thought. What is the
real power is never given; it is taken.
Yeah. So how is it translated in reality in the proverb way to the English? Do they have something like that?
We have a couple of different ways of saying it. Often they're pejorative, like a little bit, like kind of a truism, or like
truism. Yeah. But truism, it's not, because golden thought in Polish translated into English, it's positive way. Truism is like sun is rising.
Yeah, sure, and We said it like that's an obvious comment to make, like that sort of thing. I think what you're describing is a little bit more positive connotation.
Yeah, exactly. So they don't have it.
No.
Okay.
I like it though. I may have to use it.
Golden thought of Team Banky. How is it? Because our colleague found it in the dictionary.
Apt phrase.
Apt phrase. Nobody uses that. Okay, but thank you for the
Sure.
info.
No, that's something we say from time to time. Like that's particularly apt or particularly like well put, like that sort of thing. And then
But golden thought sounds better. I think.
It really does. There's so many expressions in Polish. I like your culture. I like your line of thought. Your language gives me some trouble. But
You know that it's third most complicated in the world.
Third?
Yes.
You fell that far down.
No, because of the problem is that we have the fucking he, she, it, right? You say he, she, it, whatever it is, and then you use a noun or a verb or whatever, right? And in Polish, depending on what kind of type it is, I don't know how it's called in English, you have a different word or different ending. So, declination? Okay, whatever. So, if she does it, you say always she, he, it does it. And in Polish, it's every time different. And this multiplies all the grammar by 3, and then we have many more thoughts, but many more things. But you wanted to say about minions, I think, right?
What did I want
At the end. Because you closed the iPad, but you wanted to say about Melok, Jaga Jaga. What were the win percentages for your faction currently?
I don't think it's that important.
That sounds tricky.
I don't have the. I mean, the minions had between 50 and 55%.
So normal, right? Let's say.
I think.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm bringing that down for you. I defeated minions players every round this season.
You were playing, because Rask cannot play into the Burka, right?
So silent portents casters, no surprise, as Jaga Jaga had 52, so she was the highest winning caster in.
And Melok was not so good, I think, yeah?
Melok was 51 and Rask was 50%.
But
this is pretty average.
Auto drop into.
No. I actually dropped Madrak into Rask.
Okay.
And felt really secure there. I played the matchup before. It's you play really defensively.
You couldn't chew through the whole thing? He couldn't chew through the whole thing with the ninja pick and...
No. You play really defensively, you stay out of threats or you jam a lot of pieces in. Yeah. And then he commits something, you kill it, you clear, you score a point.
Yeah.
You do it again.
The problem in that matchup, from my perspective, is the high defense. Because I need to prime my War Beast and... She needs still 8. This means boosted attacks. So that's.
I have maybe one last question for this cast.
Golden thought?
No, it's not a golden thought, but it sort of is because. Do we really, as a free players that played at WTC, do we really think that going first every time is a golden thought?
Sorry, matchups versus tables, or are we talking about turns in the game?
We can talk about. Yeah.
Okay. I think matchups are better. Full stop. I think matchups are better.
This year, because they made more balanced tables. You notice the middle
obstruction.
Or the forest
was not in the center.
Was chosen. Last year it was the biggest on the table. And this year they chose the smallest one for the middle.
Let me amend that because I say that like it's some kind of universal imperative and it's not.
Oh, universal imperative is the way you use the golden thought in Polish.
Fair. So my team practices with the WTC terrain. We printed it off, we laminated it, we took it home, we play with that. We didn't obviously steal any. We're Canadians, not monsters. But we printed it all off.
What about the mind property or how is it called?
Shut up.
Intellectual property rights. It was fair use because we didn't make a profit.
Okay.
So we set up those. We set up 5 tables with it, and we practice with it. When we practice every week, we play with the WTC terrain. When we practice for tournaments, we play with WTC terrain. We bring it in our bags everywhere we go. We're like, hey, would you mind using this terrain set? I really want to practice on it. So for all year, we're playing with exactly the same terrain set. So we build our lists to play on the terrain.
Okay.
And
so it didn't matter.
So for us, with the 5 lists the 10 lists that we brought, they were all teched for the terrain with the terrain in mind. So when that was the reality, every single round we said we want to pick matchups.
Of course.
So when we won the die roll, we wanted to pick matchups. When we lost the die roll, our opponents decided to pick tables and we picked matchups. When you pick matchups in the WTC format, if you've got lists that are green in a lot of places, you get to pick, usually, they say 3, it's 4 matchups. Because you decide the last 2,
Yes.
and you dictate the first one.
Yeah, because you give 2.
Yeah, you give 2, and you give them the worst possible choice they can
Of course, because you have out of 5, not out of 2.
So you say, like, here's the list you 100% won't play, and here's the matchup we chose for you. And then you pick, and then you pick the 2 at the end. So you get to pick 4 matchups, and that's very, very strong. So I think picking matchups is good as long as you just prepare for it all year.
So pretty much hot take, because it was said a lot that choosing terrains is as important. But
it can be avoided. I mean, it can be you can overcome this let's say negative thing.
Yeah. But
so the counter argument, of course, is if you don't tech your lists for the tables, or your opponent doesn't tech their lists for the tables, you can really change some matchups. Yeah. Last year, we put Jeremy, who was playing Legion with Callus 2, on the table with the Clouds every single round. And on one of the rounds against Ghostfleet, his opponent backed himself into the Burning Forest and put himself into Callus's threat range because he was on fire now. Like, there's things you can do,
of course,
to engineer.
Yeah, but getting 4 matchups out of 5 seems like a wise thing.
If you look at it from that perspective, then sure.
Yeah. So again, that requires a lot of development and a lot of preparation for that. But in the event where you do that well, I think it's a favorable strategy.
And this is a golden thought, guys. Remember,
if you're
next year, it will be the same.
Yeah. Invariably. I mean, it's in Belgium. They're using the same Belgian set of terrain. Hot take, they're going to continue to use the same terrain sets.
Exactly.
They've been very popular. They're very well received. And next year, I think we're actually going to be selling them too. So you'll be able to pre-order them and pick them up on site. If people want to take the same sets home with like the proper neoprene and the nice looking stuff. Actually, I might, this is a digression, so I apologize, I might take the templates of all the WTC pieces and build nice 3D terrain for the same size, the same pieces.
Yeah, because it looks better on the table.
Yeah,
and it's like a 2 fingers or something like that, right?
Yeah, we record videos and like we want things to look presentable and to market the game well. In terms of, I think your actual question was, which is like in the game, do you go first or do you go second? And I think more often than not, players assume first is just always the right answer.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's a bit of a mistake. I think some lists, especially lists that get 2 extra inches of deployment, often want to go second. Very reactive lists that can really leverage stuff can go second. And I think the Steamroller packet is played more defensively than it ever has been before. This reminds me of early Mark II, where you'd play like kind of like catcher's mitt style protectorate, where you're just like, you have to come to me because of the scenario. I'm going to toe very gently into it, and I'm just going to kill everything that presents itself. And in that kind of environment, where you've got reasonable pieces that can contest all the stuff, but that you can play keep away a moderate amount, going second gives you the first opportunity to score and the opportunity to play the 7th turn last.
Yeah, exactly.
And close out the game.
And if you are aiming at, if you know that both of you and your opponent won't be making any mistakes, or you cannot counter that, and you are aiming at playing at 7 for the 7th turn, then getting the 7th turn can win you a game, right? Yeah. We changed the list. I mean, I changed my Kriegs list from the Dark Host to Slaughterfield just to get the 2 extra inches of the deployment.
Yeah.
Because it's really equalizes even if you are, because if you lose with the Dark Host and you are starting at 10, for example, it really changes a lot. If they're just 2 inches, if you are got things, you can really contest faster and do things differently.
And especially if you have AD and 2 inches of extra of deployment.
Yeah. Or, heaven forbid, distant deployment.
Yeah.
I'm going to put some Hellmouths at 25 inches.
I chose to go second versus Anamag just to put the Hellmouths a bit further back so I have some space to... Because what use is Rask speed on turn 1 from if the Hellmouths are threatening like 27 inches up the board or something like this crazy.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's enough golden thoughts for today. Thank you team for joining us. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks guys. It was really fun hanging out. Hopefully we'll get to do it again sometime.
We'll hang out still more. We're just finishing podcast right now, not the hangout.
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Boxcars. I hope you liked it. See you soon.